Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Full Moon Positive Book Club. I am very excited about today's show because we have an incredible author here and a great all-around person, Jaya Jaya Myra. Welcome. How are you?
Doing great. It's wonderful to be here. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's so good to see you. We did have some technical issues getting here, but I am blaming Mercury retrograde on that. Jaya, I want to begin by asking you, first of all, how you're doing in the midst of this unusual world that we're now living in.
You know, as crazy as it may sound, things are busier than ever, more productive than ever. And I feel that my life is going really well. Now, I mean, I've worked from home for a long time, but so I'm acclimated to this. I really enjoy it. I get to spend more time with my roommate who's now not commuting, spending extra time on self-care. Less commuting in general means more time to focus on yourself. So I'm thriving. I'm staying healthy, eating a ton of antiviral foods, staying up with meditation and all that. So I can't complain, but I do feel the suffering of so many other people in my life and the loss of certain rituals and routines that we're all accustomed to. And that has been a little difficult to deal with. But I would say overall, things have been really good. So I've got very little to complain about.
It's very interesting that you're saying that because I pretty much feel the same way in my own life. I look at each day as its own entity. As I say to so many of my friends, I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I'm not thinking about next month. I'm not thinking about next week. I'm not thinking about next year. That's not to say that I don't have things on my schedule that I'm looking forward to, but I find that for myself, that the best way for me to get through each day is on its own individual basis, instead of being so concerned about what the future may hold for all of us.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If you just take care of right here and right now, the future has this uncanny way of working itself out. So if I'm taking care of myself, I'm doing my best to take care of the people around me. That's all you can do in any moment in time is to give your best into that moment.
Now, as I say, this is the Full Moon Positive Book Club. This, of course, is the buck moon, because according to Indian lore, that was when the deer started to grow their antlers. And it was normally through this month. And so it got the name. And in London, it was called both the rose moon and the honey moon. Not honeymoon like in wedding honeymoon. Honeymoon like when bees make honey. Do you live or breathe by the moon and its cycles as well?
I think with the aspect of spirituality that I follow, yes, like the moon is a big part of that. For me, the sun is a big part of it as well. And I think that this is a very special full moon time as well. In Indian spirituality, actually, yesterday was Guru Purnima. So it was the one day of the year that people worshiped the concept of the guru or the physical guru in someone's life. So guru being like a spiritual teacher. So this is a very, very powerful time of year for self-development and transformation and really just moving things forward. And I don't think that we could do that without the different cycles of the moon and what they represent in our psyche. Honestly, they give us an opportunity to see different facets of ourselves and to be able to integrate these into a whole cohesive picture.
Now, what does this time mean for you spiritually, as far as the bigger picture is concerned?
This time, as in like right now,
everything that's going on in the world right now, and let's face it, a lot's going on.
There is. Honestly, I think that we have a ton of blessings that are coming out of this right now. COVID-19 is exposing a lot of problems, lifestyle issues. We know that this is disproportionately affecting people with lifestyle-related diseases, which, as like the World Health Organization says, about 90% of all diseases in modern countries are just due to lifestyle choices, frankly. So people who face these type of diseases are more susceptible to COVID. We've been having all this racial injustice, all this problem here in the United States right now. So it's like really just this ugly underbelly that the world is up against is like really rearing its head. And that gives us an opportunity to see the problem and to address it in a way like in which we haven't been able to do before. And I think it's particularly fascinating with COVID-19 because we have never had this collective momentum to be forced to address lifestyle issues before this disease. So to me, this is huge. This is like a mind-blowing, amazing opportunity for people to really step up to the plate and make some changes that are going to be necessary to stay healthy, not just to stay like functional and halfway healthy, but I mean, your life may literally depend on it now.
Now, I know that you live in New York City. I
do.
live north of Manhattan, in Rockland County. I have not been in Manhattan since March 10th.
Yeah.
What is the overall feeling in New York right now?
Oh,
You're not giving away where you live or anything, but
yeah. New York City.
New York City,
Yeah, New York City.
what your day-to-day life is like walking around in the city or being a part of that.
Yeah, it's honestly been pretty somber. There's still a ton of places that are closed, even though retail and food establishments are more open now, at least for takeout. There's still a ton of places that are closed. Tons of stores are boarded up. Of course, a lot of stores have gone out of business. So it's really uncanny to walk down Fifth Avenue and see maybe half of the stores boarded up or closed, to have big food establishments that are closed, that are not going to be coming back. It really doesn't feel like New York. It feels more like a ghost town. And I think that this is still going to take quite a while to recover. I mean, honestly, this is a pretty sad time for the city and the nation in general. But at least if people aren't out on the streets, that means that they're doing something to try and shelter in place and take care of themselves.
Very important. Are you originally from New York?
I am not. I am from the West Coast. I'm originally from Reno, Nevada.
Okay. And your name, I love your name. What is the origin of the name?
So Myra is my given name. Jaya Jaya Myra is part of a longer spiritual name that I was given. And Jaya is a Sanskrit word that means victory. So whenever you see the combination of Jaya Jaya, it's usually related to the Indian goddess Durga, who overcomes obstacles and destroys evil and negativity to bring back goodness and light and harmony. So that is a lot of what the energy that I work with represents. It's how do we get rid of obstacles and get back to a place of harmony in life.
And when, where, and how did that name come about for you?
It came about, I guess, as a part of my spiritual tradition and in the right place at the right time. And I decided to use it as a pen name. I see it as my own personal mantra and affirmation, because it also includes my birth name, which is extremely rare for spiritual names. So it's still like an intrinsic part of me, but reminding me that that energy is one of victory and to overcome obstacles and help other people do the same.
And I want to talk a little bit about your spiritual journey to get you to where you are today.
Absolutely.
You're originally from California.
Nevada.
Nevada. And your family, parents, are they still with us?
No.
Physically? Okay. Brothers, sisters?
I have none.
Oh, well, everyone that you meet is your brother and sister.
Yes, I have two children who are in school on the West Coast.
Okay. And this is your second book. We're talking, of course, about the soul of purpose. You know, I've done my research, but tell everyone a little bit about your first book and how that book came about, which I think is a very fascinating story.
Yeah, absolutely. It was actually a very strange story. My first book is called Vibrational Healing, Attain Balance and Wholeness, Understand Your Energetic Type. And it came about in a very strange way. I was writing for magazines at the time, and it happened that a acquisitions editor in a major publishing house came across one of my articles, and she reached out and asked me to write them a book. Now, I've been told by countless authors and other people who work in acquisitions that this never happens, but that literally is what happened to me. So I said yes, and I wrote them the book. And I thought it was very, very strange, because it was just very, very strange for me, because it was a book on vibrational healing. And the article that editor had seen was also the one and only article that an editor asked me to write. I would normally pitch my own spiritual stories and they would publish them. The magazine came back to me and said, we'd love it if you'd write an article on this topic. And I thought it was very strange. I'm like, why are you coming to me to write you an article on vibrational healing? Can't you find 1,000 other energy healers to do that for you? And they're like, no, well, we want you to write it. So I'm like, okay, the stranger it is, the more I should say yes to the opportunity. And I did. And about 3 months later is when I got the call from the acquisition editor at Llewellyn asking me to submit a book proposal on the topic.
And what was the process in terms of writing the book? How long did it take and, you know, coming together?
It took about 9 months, and that's because I had to rewrite about half of it because I had never written a book before, and they wanted it simplified. They're like, you should take about 3/4 of this and make an advanced book on it. So I'm like,
And
oh,
of course, you have a background as a scientist.
I do. So I guess I think in ways that are a little bit different than most people, maybe a little bit more analytical in nature. So I took a lot of the more complex stuff out of the book, and I really brought it down to a level that anyone can understand. But you could be a master healer, you can be a yoga instructor, and this is still going to be beneficial for you because it's looking at things in a slightly different way than even Ayurveda or Chinese medicine does. It takes all of these philosophies and it teaches you how to understand their core principles and values, but how to apply that to your own life with inner discernment in a way that you're going to be able to learn to find a healing modality that will work for you based on your own constitution and type. So I haven't seen other resources like that available, and that's what inspired me to write the book in the way that I did. I think that we're all unique, and that makes us beautiful, and it makes us different, and we've all got our own unique journeys. And you're not ever going to believe that natural healing works if you try to do something that's not in alignment with your type and your constitution. But when you find the things that are, you're going to find what works for you, and you're going to be successful right off the bat.
And how long ago was it that the book was written?
It was published in 2015, so it was written in 2013.
Wow.
Yeah.
And were there major changes in your life once the book came out?
Not once the book came out. I think all the major changes happened before that because it was before that I had been diagnosed with fibromyalgia and lost everything in my life. Like that's when I lost my career as a scientist. My home was foreclosed on. I had to declare bankruptcy. Pretty much lost everything in my life, got divorced. So figuring out how to heal myself naturally when Western medicine was completely ineffective in anything, going through that journey and just knowing that I was never going to be the victim and I was not going to remain sick, but having no one to teach me or guide me along the way. Like I did have a guru. I did study in a legit spiritual tradition, but they always guided me, said, you actually know the answers yourself. Tap into these things. Like this is something that you have to discover because you're supposed to make a difference for other people. And that's not going to happen if we give you the answers. So I really had to dive deep and figure out a lot of things so that I would be able to guide others in this process as well. So that I would really, truly understand like the nitty gritty, the ins and outs, and not just like one linear, straightforward path. Like there was a lot of trial and error before I figured out what worked and what didn't and why.
Well, was this all like a process that happened, or did everything hit you like a ton of bricks?
Everything hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like everything just happened within a very short time span of a few months.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that we're going through this time right now, and I know a lot of people who are listening and watching are probably feeling the same despondency and desperation that you were feeling at this time. What message would you give to everyone who's watching now about how you gradually pulled through this? And I know that's a big, loaded question.
Oh, man. Well, there's a lot of different things, but honestly, whenever you have these big moments, like where everything seems to either come together or fall apart, it poses this great opportunity for you. It's like a spiritual awakening of sorts. You really get to see the world in a different way, and it presents you with the opportunity and the momentum behind it to actually facilitate making a change in your life. And I don't think that we have these sort of opportunities often enough. Usually everything's like kind of on this even keel, this even pace, and then you have no momentum or motivation to actually make a change. It's only when things get turned upside down that you're going to have enough of an impetus to do things in a different way. And I don't know anyone who doesn't want to make some sort of a change in their life, but they can't muster the energy or the courage, or there's like some kind of a major blocker for them. So big disasters present big opportunities because those disasters clear most of your obstacles out of the way.
And was there a specific moment, a turning point where you hit rock bottom and you just said enough is enough and changed everything?
It was actually before that. I kind of said enough is enough when I started on the spiritual path and started with meditation and mindfulness. And then it was very quickly after that that the the crap hit the fan, so to speak.
Mhm.
And then everything fell apart, which was really showing me that I was on a very good trajectory for making change. It's like I had already reached that point where I said, I'm done with this. I need to make a change in my life.
And did you ever question your spirituality during this time?
I never questioned my spirituality. It was a lifeline and an anchor to me. But I've had a deep spiritual connection with God since I was a child, even growing up in a Christian household and in a religion that was pretty conservative at the time. I always just had this intrinsic spiritual connection that was far beyond the religion or the dogma or the belief system, to where my connection with God was sacred and was personal. And I always knew that no matter what negativity, what obstacles were present in my life, that there was like a reason to have this connection and that it was an anchor for me. So when I started to come to mindfulness and meditation and realize how truly, truly powerful these things are, things just started making a lot more sense. And I literally never looked back.
And I want to move forward to where we are today with the Soul of Purpose. How did this book come about, and what was the defining factor for you in terms of sitting down to write this book?
There is a lot of intersections between spirituality and health that are not understood, and that I don't feel that any of the spiritual teachers out there have really shined a light on. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's because they don't know it or because they just look at things in a slightly different way. But I think that for the times right now, for the problems that we're facing right now, for the problems that we're facing with health and with societal injustice, that this is the time for this message to be out there. The message between what is the connection between spirituality and health? What is the connection between purpose and health? How does this impact your personal constitution and type? And what can you do to cultivate a positive mindset, or the type of mindset that will pull you through any and every situation that you find yourself in, whether that's good or bad? Because what I've discovered is that wellness, if you make yourself well, you're going to be making society well at the same time. Like, you can't truly be healthy, fully healthy in yourself, and be doing things that are corrosive and disruptive on a societal level. Like, you may not believe the same as other people, but you need to enable other people to succeed. Like, we've got too many problems right now, like with racism, with classism.
Alexa, stop. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, keep going. I'm sorry.
All of these poisons in society. And this book and the message helps us to fight against all of that through learning how to shape your mindset to overcome your own subconscious and unconscious bias.
Well, I'm glad you said this, because it's the message that I'm putting out to so many people right now. And I say to all of my friends who listen, I'm not responsible, whether or not you wear a mask, or the actions of policemen, whether it's positive or negative. I'm only responsible for how I respond to these things.
That's exactly true.
And so many people right now, I think, are getting so caught up in policing others as to whether or not they are wearing their mask, or whether or not they're staying at home, or whether or not they're social distancing. So it's very, very important for us to take care of our own health before we go out into the world to interact with others.
Well, the funny thing is, the more time that you're spending trying to control other people, it means that you're spending very little time controlling yourself. Because if you were putting your energy inwardly and focused on you and what you can do to make the world a better place, you wouldn't be saying a word about anyone else. That's really just the way that the energy works. Like you said, it's all about responsiveness. And in this book, The Soul of Purpose, I outline what I call the WELL method. So it's looking at the word WELL, WELL, as an acronym. One of those acronyms is love and not fear. And that all comes down to being responsive and not reactive. Like, how do you approach life and the world and your entire thought process and situations from how can I have tolerance and compassion and understanding for what's happening in front of me right now? And if you were to have that kind of tolerance and compassion and understanding, you wouldn't be yelling at the person on the road who's not wearing a mask. You'd be focusing on, well, what can I do? How can I impact the world? What could I actually do to motivate people in a positive way, as opposed to criticize them and berate them? And And this is very important right now. I just think when people feel scared and out of control, we're just so apt to blame other people and not shine the light inwardly that, that behavior is toxic and corrosive too.
Well, don't you believe that most people are acting on every level with everything that's going on right now out of fear, instead of trying to come through from a positive point of where we can, I look at this idea of removing films like Gone with the Wind, which was a product of its time, and rather than just completely destroying it, learn from the history so we don't repeat the same mistakes moving forward.
Oh, absolutely. I think that we should learn from history. I mean, you can't just erase things and expect to not repeat those things. I mean, you have to have negative experiences. Otherwise, you are not apt. You're not going to have the motivation or the inspiration to want to create a positive life. Like, I never believe that we should live in a sterile environment where we don't experience hardship. I believe that we should face all of the hardship that comes to us with the understanding that we have the intrinsic tools to overcome everything.
Mm-hmm. And when this book was scheduled to come out, obviously we didn't have this pandemic.
No, we didn't.
When was the book originally scheduled to come out?
It was scheduled to come out the same time in January of next year. It was interesting though, because I had written the book sooner, and it actually took quite a while to get into a publication queue. But I think that honestly, this is coming out at the perfect time. If it had come out a year ago, it would not have been the right time for this book. But right now,
absolutely.
Yeah, people are faced with so many problems. It's like mental health is now becoming a priority. Purpose is becoming a priority. Staying healthy, having societal justice and equality. And this is exactly what this book addresses. So while originally I didn't understand why there were delays, like I knew intuitively there had to be a reason, it was frustrating for things to get delayed by nearly an entire year. I'm like, I want my message out. I want the next book out. There's no reason that it has to be 6 years between publication of my 2 books. What is going on here? But I always trust that the universe has a rhyme and a reason, even if I don't know what that is at the time. And I think that the timing is positioning this book to be wildly successful because of everything that people are facing right now.
I totally agree. And I will be putting the information up how people can get the book. It is available now for pre-order on Amazon. As a matter of fact, I will put that information up on the screen. And here we are. It's available on January 5th, 2021. Am I correct with that?
You are correct. But for anyone who purchases the book early, I'm actually doing a weekly giveaway between now and the publication date. So there's going to be a weekly raffle for anyone who purchases early and sends me their information. So you can win a session with me. I don't do sessions with people normally. So if you actually want time to sit and talk with me, ask questions about your journey, health, healing, wellness, spirituality, I'm happy to sit and talk with you. And this is the only opportunity that you will get for that.
Well, now I'm going to order the book again. So how did you come up with the title, The Soul of Purpose?
So the soul of purpose is really looking at like what it says. It's like purpose has a soul. This is the whole underlying this is like the pin of the entire message, is that people don't understand how important purpose is to health and well-being. And this is really the unifying connection between spirituality and health is in purpose. Mm-hmm. So in Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, these ancient healing systems, you learn that you have your own constitution and type, your own elemental constitution, your own dosha constitution, and that you need to do your own unique things to take care of you, right? Mm-hmm. And then in spirituality, they say that God made you perfect and whole and beautiful, and you have everything that you need to succeed. So these two pieces don't speak together very eloquently, or in our modern day, we don't quite understand how to make them speak together. So purpose is the missing link between the two. If you believe that God made you perfect and you're given everything that you need to do to succeed, that means that there was this master plan for your life long before you ever took birth. And if that's the case, the only unifying thread between everything is what that purpose for your life was. So it's actually purpose that creates your constitution, creates your elemental type, and gives you everything that you need to succeed. Because in your elemental type is coded your strengths, your weaknesses, your gifts, your talents, your attributes, even your physical body size, shape, and structure is all determined by your constitution. And this is ultimately because of your purpose for living. So when you are living your purpose, you're facilitating better health in so many ways. Like science even now knows you live your purpose, you're happy, you're optimistic. This boosts the microbiome in your body. You have better gut flora, you have better skin flora. These things are all connected to mental and emotional health. You have better hormone regulation. You have lower cortisol, which is your stress hormone. So just by living your purpose and staying happy and cultivating a positive mindset, you're actually facilitating much better health on a very basic level of even boosting your immunity. If you're afraid, if you're negative, that's going to lower your immunity. You're more prone to get sick. If you have a bout of anger, you can kill your entire, not your entire, but you can kill a lot of the microbiome that lives in your gut, cause problems with digestion. That's going to lead to a whole host of other health issues. Like Ayurveda talks about digestion being at the root of all health and wellness. So it's actually extremely interconnected, and science is now beginning to see and validate this. And so again, this makes it an extra exciting time for this message that says, hey, these ancient sages really did have a lot of knowledge available to them. And, maybe we should tap into some of this ancient wisdom and knowledge and facilitate mind-body well-being as a way to stay healthy and not just focus on the physical.
Oh, I wish that your book was available now. I mean, these messages are just so important.
They are.
I've been looking at this since the beginning of March, when I first really started hearing about COVID-19 from friends that live in Italy and that affect what was happening there. And I just think of this as a spiritual wake-up call.
It's a huge spiritual wake-up call, I think. We need something to knock everything off kilter for people to make a change. So honestly, I mean, this is a rough time for a lot of people, but I hope it wakes a lot of people up to making some change.
Amen. 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 Do you have a routine in your day-to-day life, or?
Yes.
And what is that routine?
I have a lot of routines. I'm big onto practical wellness, doing simple, small, sustainable things that make life better. Because when you're working with the mind, you actually can't erase your experiences. If you want to make a change, you got to rewire neural connections. So it's like writing over an old cassette tape, right? You can't erase that cassette, but you can tape over it. So in order to do that, you have to have consistent routines, like daily consistent routines. So I have a lot of different things that I do, and a lot of them are just things that make me happy. A lot of people say, hey, Myra, I can't be consistent with anything. How do you recommend that I go about meditating or do something else? I'm like, well, I don't recommend that you meditate. And then they look at me like, hey, but you're like this meditation teacher, and you say meditation healed you from fibromyalgia. It's like, well, yes, it did. But I recognize you can't be consistent with something you don't like doing until you can be consistent with something that you do like doing.
Not going to the gym if you don't enjoy going to the gym.
Yeah, absolutely. So are you even doing one thing each and every day that you enjoy? Most people, the answer is going to be no. So that's actually the first thing I always recommend to people. Cultivate a daily routine doing something you like. Maybe that's 15 minutes to sit and read a book. Maybe it's making a cup of tea every morning or every afternoon. I love my daily tea. I have tea like 3 or 4 times a day.
Well, let me ask you, because this is very important to me, my morning routine.
Yeah.
And I do have a morning routine. Julia Cameron, who wrote the book, The Artist's Way. I don't know if you're familiar with the book, but I begin every day with writing my morning pages. What is your morning routine?
My morning routine is waking up. I try to wake up before sunrise every day, because that actually helps to frame your mindset in a positive way. There's been different studies done on this, but if you wake up after sunrise, you're just not as apt to be as productive or as motivated. So I try to get up before sunrise. I have my morning cup of tea. That is how I start each and every day. And the second that I wake up, I always say something positive. I think a very positive thought, speak a positive thought. I don't let my mind start thinking about anything until I wake up, and I tell myself in that moment what a great day it's going to be and why, and what I'm going to accomplish.
And do you have a method or a way of trying to keep the negativity out?
I think that those things act as this powerful shield to keep the negativity out, because it's literally the first thing that I allow my mind to think of when I'm not even fully conscious. It's just when I'm half awake, half groggy. I'm going to have a wonderful day, and maybe it's I'm going to get a new client today, or I'm going to make I'm going to make client X extremely happy because they're going to get this result. I always frame it with something positive that I've been intending to do. And then those things typically end up happening. But that in itself
excuse me, but do you consider these affirmations, or do you have another way of looking at them?
I think a lot of people would consider them affirmations, but I consider it pure willpower. I look at it and say, if this is like my personal communication with God, and I'm saying, God, God that's outside of me and God that is inside of me, this is what's going to happen today. I am the co-creator of my reality, and this is what I want to happen. I believe that when you speak things and you speak truth always and consistently, the things you speak do come to pass. So when I say this is how my day is going to be, then this is how the day is going to be.
I totally believe that. I absolutely believe that. And thank you for saying that. I want to let everyone know once again that we are here on the Full Moon Positive Book Club on Facebook. I know some of you are watching through other methods, but if you have any questions or comments, please weigh them in. If you type them out, we'll be able to respond to those. I was talking to a friend earlier today, and she said that, she's having a really hard time staying motivated during this time. And I think you pretty much have just answered what keeps you motivated, and the same things keep me motivated. But what advice would you give to those who don't necessarily have these routines in their life?
Well, to cultivate a daily routine that you really enjoy doing, just some personal self-care time. I think most people don't take adequate time to take care of themselves at all. So even if it's, hey, I'm going to go take a bubble bath, or I'm going to sit down with a cup of tea or my book, just those small, simple acts of consistently taking care of yourself, that is going to change the way that you start perceiving things. I mean, whenever we think of something being bad or we're not motivated, it's not because things are bad. It's because this is the way that we're perceiving a situation. So just sometimes changing the mindset will change your outlook. I mean, yes, some people have very legitimate reasons for not being motivated right now, but that can also be a catalyst for you to go about doing something to make a bigger change. Like if a loved one is sick, I understand, hey, maybe you're not motivated to do certain things, but that can also be motivating in separate ways. So try to find a silver lining behind the situation. There will always be one.
The Music Man was on last night on Turner Classic Movies. No, stick with me for a minute. But there was a wonderful moment in the movie, and the play, of course, in which Professor Harold Hill invites Marion to meet him at the footbridge. She finally gives in and meets him at the footbridge. And she said, I almost didn't come here. And he said, you can spend a lifetime collecting tomorrows to find out you have no yesterdays. Do you feel that there are any yesterdays that you missed out on? Or do you feel that everything's happening as it should absolutely be unfolding in your life?
I do believe that everything is unfolding the way that it should be in my life. That's not to say that I don't feel sorrow for things that have happened in my life. I mean, of course I do, but I wouldn't change things. You can look at a situation and say, this really sucks, and still not want to change it. Like I have full faith that things are happening the way that they're happening for reasons. And if I want things to be different, then I need to make a change here and now. It literally does no good to look at the past or to be remorseful for anything, because you can't do anything about it. So it's completely wasted energy. But what you can do is acknowledge what you want here and now and what you want moving forward, and start to take the necessary steps right now. If you don't want something the way that it was yesterday or today, you need to make a change today so that it will be different tomorrow.
Now you talk, and I haven't read the book, so I'm going just blindly through this. But you mention the wellness plan that you have created in your book. Can you give us a little skeletal idea of what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I talk about the WELL method and the four, the WELL, the acronym to that. It's like 4 cornerstones for really framing your mindset in a positive way. I also discuss what the 2 key things are to your purpose. And one of those is identifying your unique elemental constitution and type, because that helps you to hone in on your strengths and your weaknesses. So you can learn to minimize your weaknesses, bolster your strengths. I talk about inner prosperity, but then I also allow people to fill out this customized, bespoke wellness plan for them. So if I am earth and fire, which are two of my strong elements, what I'm going to do as far as a meditation or as far as a daily routine is going to be very different than, say, someone who has a strong water-based constitution. So like there's all of these different parts of your wellness plan that you get to fill out in a way that's going to be in alignment with your constitution and your unique needs and your unique talents and gifts so that you can overcome your limitations and obstacles. I talk a lot about synergy, creating synergy. So this is, again, the small sustainable things that you do that build on one another to where 1 and 1 add up to 5 instead of 2. So the entire second half of the book, when I'm talking about this kind of step-by-step thing, like each chapter goes in order of the way that you should implement each step in order for them to build synergy. It's like, yeah, you could go to chapter 15 and do chapter 15 first, but it's not going to be anywhere near as effective as if you start like at that chapter 1 and keep like walking.
You just answered my next question.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah, because people are like, hey, well, I did this first. And I'm like, well, good for you. And I think that that's really giving you a lot of positivity. But if you build step by step by step, you're going to create all of the synergy to where it's like you're just building this wall of momentum that's going to keep pushing you forward. Like you can't meditate if you don't know about the breath, because literally just by slowing down your breath, that slows down what happens in your mind. So if you have no control over how you're breathing or where you're breathing into your body, you probably are not going to be an effective meditator, and you're going to get super frustrated and you're going to have to put a ton of extra work into it. But if you just spend 2 weeks learning how you breathe and where you breathe and why, and learning how to slow down your breath in different ways, by the time that you go to try to meditate, you're going to be so much more effective than if you didn't do that. And you're not going to give up, and you're going to stick with it, and you're going to go, hey, this is awesome, and I'm getting results super fast. And you're not going to be one of those people who says, oh, I can't meditate, I've tried so hard, and then you just give up. So everything, step by step by step, it builds on each other.
What do you think is the biggest misconception that most people have about meditation?
That there's one right way to do things, that you need to sit and you need to like have this mudra and you need to sit in a lotus pose. And all of this is completely untrue. Like, yes, hand positions all mean different things esoterically. Sitting in lotus position, if you can even do it, can allow you to sit with your spine upright for hours at a time. I don't know anyone in the modern world who has time to meditate for hours. So my recommendation is just to get comfortable. And there's also this misconception that you don't think when you're meditating. Now, you know what? Thoughts will come through your mind like radio waves. They're always there. You cannot get rid of them, ever. What you can do is learn how to focus on such a minute place that you don't pay attention to the rest of that. But it will always be there.
I think of my life as a constant meditation.
It is a constant meditation. And that's the other thing. Like, you don't have to be silent. You don't have to like sit in silence. Silent meditation is great for certain things. Active meditation, walking meditation is great for other things. So it really depends. What do you want to get out of it? Why are you meditating? That's all going to inform how you should meditate and when and why. Morning meditation works different than nighttime meditation, works different than silent meditations, works different than an active meditation. So, you really need to know what your end goal is and why you're sitting to do this practice to begin with for it to be effective.
Well, the hardest thing for me is not the beginning of the day, it's the end of the day. Shutting down and letting everything go. What suggestions or ideas do you have for someone who, like myself, deals with that struggle? And I know that it's not one size that fits all. I understand that.
No, yeah, I completely get that. I think a lot of it is going to be to really get grounded and focused on something that inspires and excites you even more than the stuff that's going on. Because again, I don't think that we can just dump our stress at the end of the day. I think that the only way that we can really eliminate stress and anxiety effectively, or any just of the clutter that goes on, is by having an anchor that's even more potent and powerful. That's something in the world that's motivating you and inspiring you to get up each and every day and to keep up with all the clutter. So it's like, have that really positive anchor that is making everything else worthwhile. And again, that helps to like shift the mindset in a way to where even if you could just take a little bit of time not to meditate, but to focus on that and to visualize what you want and to start like projecting that and making that reality, making your future that reality, that in itself is going to diminish like all of this other clutter and chaos without you thinking that you have to just destroy it. Because everyone wants to eliminate these things, but they don't realize that stress is actually a catalyst for success. We just need to learn how to deal with it and put it into perspective, AKA make it this tiny, tiny little part of your existence to where your existence is huge and expansive. And your stress and your anxiety and your clutter is like this little tiny ball. Because we're always going to have it. Like successful people have more stress and problems than other people, but it's just about how they perceive it and how they're able to like take it and say, okay, this is not as important as this. Let me focus on this.
Now, when you sat down to write this book, did you sit down with an outline of what you wanted, or did it just things unfold for you?
Yes, I did need to sit down with an outline to write it. I had to get very intentional and really, I would say meditate, but a lot of my meditation is very active because I'm a woman. Shakti energy is more dynamic than transcendental energy. So I just tapped into that God energy, whatever you want to call it. It's like, what needs to go in this book? How do I write this? What is important? What is theory? What is the practical day-to-day application? And that's really how I wrote it. Was I didn't want to just teach a bunch of theory or whimsical spiritual nonsense, which we get a lot of that. I wanted to write a practical compendium of how do you walk in day-to-day life. Like, let me tell you, as a research scientist, what you learn in your science classes is nothing compared to what you do in a laboratory setting. They're night and day different. And it's no different with spirituality. It's like how you apply spirituality and wellness in a day-to-day life where you have stress and responsibilities and obligations is very different from the theory that you would learn in a yoga teacher training or in a spiritual tradition. Like, how do you make meditation applicable? How do you make it work for you? How do you get rid of stress and anxiety? Like, this is really step by step by step, how you keep building the synergy and momentum in a way that things are going to work for you, and you learn how to cultivate stress in a positive way, and you learn how to diminish anxiety, and you learn how to focus on your goals and your interconnection with God. So that was very, very important to me, was what do people think it looks like versus what does it really look like in day to day? It's like, we want to see the ugly, nitty gritty reality so that people can know what it looks like and go about making change.
Now, I know you said that with your first book that you had to rewrite a lot because you were very analytical in terms of the way
I was just very, I guess some of the concepts were more advanced. I didn't think they were like more advanced, but they wanted it just like really honed in, and I learned how to write a really strong book.
What changed for you in terms of writing this book? What's very similar to the first book, and what's different about writing this book?
They're both structured in a fairly similar way. Like with the first book, I really learned how to write a very good quality book, and I'm extremely grateful for that opportunity because I knew exactly what needed to be done with the second one to not have my acquisitions editor like rip it up. Like they literally made no changes. Just the grammar editing, that was it. So that was a huge testament to, I learned the first time in my mistakes. So now it's like, let me go back and just write a really strong book from day one. So it's keeping things simple, to the point. I like the acronym of a CAR, like you're building a car: concept, action, result. What is the concept that I'm trying to teach? What is the actionable step that people can take to get a specific result? So that is the way the book is written. You're going to learn a concept. You're going to learn actionable steps in each chapter that are going to help you to attain specific results.
And when you're writing a book such as this, do you have a routine of sitting down a specific time each day, or do you write in spurts as these thoughts come your way? I mean, you have an outlet, obviously, that you're working with.
I write in spurts. I do try to sit. There's some days when stuff just won't come, or I have other obligations. I run a PR and communications company. I'm a busy, busy person. So some days work would get the better of me, and you need to deal with clients, responsibilities, staff. That is the way that it is. Some days no inspiration came. There's like a 6-week time frame where I couldn't seem to get anything useful out of my brain. I just had to put it aside, and let it flow when it wanted to flow. And that's highly frustrating to go through those situations, but it is kind of the nature of writing. I gave myself more than adequate time. I got my book in far in advance. I just made sure that I paced myself so that I gave myself a long like leeway to where, hey, I have to have the book finished by here. I still got it done about 6 weeks prior to that, even with my long spurts of writer's block.
Now, you mentioned PR. In what area are you in PR? In the entertainment field?
I'm a publicist for companies and entrepreneurs and other authors. So I help people to like build their brands, know how to create like a sustainable message and get their message out into the world. Like, how do you talk to TV producers and journalists in a way that's going to get them excited about what you're doing? Because as an author myself, I know how important that is and how much of a holy grail it seems like, because it's just a whole other world.
We'll be talking about that later. I want to talk to you about all this. This is
Absolutely
great. And how do you crisscross or intersect the world of your spirituality and the world of PR?
You know, honestly, I feel that this is my way of seva or service to the world and giving back. Communications, writing, this has always been my strength. Even as a scientist, I was always the one writing out all the procedures and doing the formal stuff. I thought at one time maybe I'd go into patent writing because I just have that ability to take analytical information and technical information and make it understandable to people, which is probably why I write spiritual science books that teach you how to translate ancient wisdom into understandable things that we can digest here and now, right? But learning how to do these things was really, so I would learn how to promote myself and my own brand. And I got super, super successful at it and started doing it for other people because there's a need for it. There's so many people who've got these great messages and don't know how to get the word out. So I love like working with authors and entrepreneurs who are making the world a better place, whether it's through wellness or sustainability or empowerment or equality, and like helping them get their message out into the mainstream media. To me, it's like that's like an active form of spirituality. So I don't sit at an altar and worship. I don't like worship some form or formless God. To me, like God is everything around me. God is in everything. So if I can help people succeed and make the world a more positive place, like that is my form of worship.
We will definitely talk. I love that message. I mean, that's why I call myself Richard Skipper Celebrates. It's all about celebrating each other. I always say that I'm looking for a person's body of worth, what they bring to the world. And I appreciate all that you're doing in terms of bringing this together. I want to ask you, has your life unfolded in a way that you had envisioned? I mean, obviously, you mentioned earlier these major bumps.
Yes and no. So in one way, absolutely not. But I had these crazy, crazy visions when I was in my early 20s. I had these visions. Okay, so I was married. I had my children. I owned a house. I was working as a research scientist. I was getting my PhD, which I had to walk away from, by the way, like right before I defended my thesis. So that's a whole other story. But that was my stereotypical normal life, right? Yet I had all these visions of this single, successful, slightly older version of someone who was like living in New York City and being a successful writer and media personality. And it was so foreign to my life that I didn't see it as my own life. I thought I was like channeling some kind of a story or something. But it seemed like me and it felt like me. And I also saw visions of some other things which haven't come to pass yet, but are kind of on a personal level, like, you know, meeting my Mr. Right and having all that fall into place. But I saw these visions long before my life looked anything like it does now. And this is the direction that my life has taken. Yeah, like I've moved out of Reno. I live in New York City. I'm doing all these things.
How did that transition happen?
It was all very strange. But after like my life started falling apart, I moved to Minnesota for a few years, literally because when you've declared bankruptcy and foreclosure and your husband leaves you and you don't have a roof over your head, you go where you can go, right? So I ended up in Minnesota living with a friend for a couple of years. And that's when I worked on really healing the fibromyalgia and getting better, figuring all that stuff out. And then I had an opportunity to come to New York, and I just knew instantly I actually had a vision before that said you're moving to New York. And then I did end up coming to New York for a wonderful speaking opportunity. And then I knew it was like, yeah, I needed to be out here. So again, on really a wing and a prayer, a friend of mine and me moved out here, and we gradually, slowly started making things work. It took time. It took a lot of time and a lot of ingenuity and effort. But that's when really the opportunities start coming. And that's when I got the opportunity for my book and these other writing assignments and forming my own communications and PR company.
So you truly structured your own life. You've created this life for yourself.
I have. I took the strengths and talents that I've always had as a writer and a strong scientific and technical writer, transitioned them over into a marketing role. So I started consulting for major agencies. Then I started working in startups. I took head of marketing and chief marketing officer roles, helping people to build their brands and structure their message, because these are things that I've always been passionate about. And I've always understood that there's a psychological component to branding and perception. Again, it's spirituality 101. It's like, it's practical spirituality, how you put your message out, the fonts, the colors, the tone, all of the stuff is going to impact how it's received by people. Yes, there were still a lot of things I needed to learn. And I went through that legitimate process and learned all of these things, but everything was self-taught. Everything that I've done in PR world, a lot of it has been self-taught. Now I'm smart enough to get mentors when I need to. One of my media mentors was a 2-time Emmy-winning producer for Oprah. So you better know she taught me how to work with producers and do TV stuff. And that's what gave me the opportunity to do national TV with Harry Connick Jr. It's because I know when I need education, I find the right teachers and mentors, and I just go out and I do it and I make it happen. And that's sometimes when you don't have anyone else in your corner, you've got to do these things for yourself.
Well, on a somewhat, negative context, I am hearing a lot that because people are confined and everything now, domestic violence is on the rise.
Yes.
In the middle of this pandemic. And a lot of people feel stuck. And, it's easy for you and I to have this conversation right now because where the two of us are in our lives. But how do you get across to those people who feel that they're absolutely stuck in their lives? And how do I get out of this?
To know that nothing is ever permanent. That is both the beauty and the sorrow of life, is that literally everything in this world is transient. What is here today will not be here tomorrow. You can have the most beautiful, joyous experience, and you are 100% guaranteed that feeling is going to leave you. You can also have the most horrific things happen to you, and yet the sun will rise tomorrow and it will be a different day. Now, this is coming from someone who faced sexual abuse as a child growing up for many years. Now, I understand what it's like to be terrified and to not feel safe, like in your own home. I get that. All I can say is you need to have faith and you need to keep pushing forward, that there is an opportunity for change and things will get better if that's truly what you want. If you want to find a way out of a situation, you will find a way out of a situation.
Now, I know that for so many people, social media, Facebook, Twitter, all of that can be a very harsh, negative place to be.
Yeah.
But I found you through social media, and you are a true blessing.
Thank you.
How
are you?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I cannot wait to get this book. And I've got on the screen here how people can get it through Amazon. Are there other platforms as well?
Oh yeah, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, through the publisher directly. It's going to be available at every major bookseller. It's distributed through Simon & Schuster, so you'll be able to find the book globally, pretty much anywhere that sells books. It will be in like Kindle and Nook and ebook form as we get closer to publication too.
And will people be able to purchase it through your website as well?
Yes, they can purchase it through the website. I have the link to all the different retailers, like where you can get a copy of the book from. And you can also see there how to enter my weekly giveaway contest, which I highly recommend that you guys do, because then you get FaceTime with me to talk directly.
And I'm going to continue to get the message out there. I'm going to keep pushing this book. You're going to get tired of seeing my post.
No, I think that this is great. I really, really want this book to become a bestseller because I think it has such power to make change right now. Like, I've even launched this huge charitable initiative because in addition to my company, and my brand, I run a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So we're looking to do a giveaway of 10,000 books to charities that are helping to support mental health, to charities and grassroots organizations that are supporting mental health and social equality and justice. Like for people who can't afford the book, who can't afford the message, to get this into the hands of people where it's going to make a difference and inspire and motivate change.
And I want to say to you that with anything that you're doing, whether you're posting on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or Instagram or any of the myriad number of platforms you're on, feel free to tag me, so that my followers can be made aware of everything. I end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. And what I'm asking everyone to do today, and I'm going to ask you to do the same thing, go to your friends list on Facebook and go to your 5th friend and just reach out to them and say, I'm just calling to say hello and see how you are. Tell them I sent you there. And I also want to, if you had a great time today, and I hope you did as much as I did, Jaya Jaya, please go to my website, which is richardskipper.com, and put your thoughts about the show. That helps to sell me in other markets and to get the word out about what we're doing. This will be available on podcast on all platforms, so I'm thrilled about that. This will be available on YouTube. Thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. And I also want to let you know that tomorrow at 5 o'clock, I am going to be interviewing Tony Award winner Anthony Crivello. And we're going to be raising money for Project ALS in honor of Rebecca Luker, who is battling this disease. But God willing, we're going to get her through this. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me here. This has been a blast.
Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon.
You
and
too.
Go out and celebrate the full moon tonight.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.